welcome back to another episode of the Slow Blink Anime Podcast. This is Phil, and today it's just going to be me talking. It's going to be about a topic that's probably means a lot to people that grew up in the 90s or born around the 90s. It's going to be Pokemon. And just a couple days ago, a new episode of the Pokemon Twilight miniseries came out, episode 1 actually. And it's going to be a 7-part series, and they're all going to be relatively short episodes. I think around, they said 5 minutes each one. And this first one was 6 minutes, and we got introduced to a couple characters, and it's going to be, I'm not sure what kind of route the story's going to go in, but it's going to be based in the Sword and Shield games in the Galar region. So those of you that played those games are going to be pretty familiar with a lot of the characters that are in it. Just for example, I played the Shield game, and I went through the whole game, and I already noticed a bunch of characters that I was familiar with already. The main one that's probably going to be one of the main characters is Chairman Rose. And I think he really stood out a lot in this episode too, and I hope we get more in depth in his character, because he really came off kind of scummy in the games, and I think we didn't really flesh out his character as much, because I know he was a character that really cared about just the world in general, and I think the way he was trying to go about it to better the world was kind of extreme. And I think this will kind of get us more in depth of his character and give us a better explanation on his thought process and just the kind of person he is in general. But let's just get into it. So it starts off with this young boy. He's probably, I'm not sure, he's pretty young, but he's in a hospital and he's with his friend. And I think it kind of gives us the vibe that he's been there for a while, if not probably grown up there for anything. And they didn't really go into depth on what kind of illness he had. But it seemed like he was a pretty weak and timid child and kind of confined to the hospital. But they get real excited because there's another Pokemon battle going on with a champion Leon, which if you play the games, you're really familiar with his character and the type of person he is. And they start watching the fight, and then you see that he's doing his signature Charizard pose where he's got his hand up in the air. And this is just really exciting to see all this stuff animated. And speaking of animated, the animation is really, really beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. All the characters was real smooth and clean, and the backgrounds were pretty stationary. It looks like they just did a painting and kind of had the characters move through the background, which was pretty nice, and it gave us a different feel. And just the animation style kind of reminded me of the old Digimon movies, and even the new Digimon anime that came out recently. Just really fine, clean lines, not too much detail going on. But it's a really visually aesthetic and pleasing to the eye whenever you're watching that type of animation, because it just makes it real smooth and you're able to do more without worrying about all the details that are involved in it. But you see Champion Leon, he just wins his match, and the kids are real excited, and they get more exciting news because they find out Chairman Rose is actually going to come visit the hospital and see all the kids. And of course, the main character, John, he starts getting real excited, and he starts writing a letter for Chairman Rose. He's just because he wants to go see he wants to see Leon fight live. Want to see one of his battles, and he starts working on that right away. He's working on it, and his buddy goes out and he actually sees Chairman Rose there at the hospital. And John finishes his letter. Unfortunately, not soon enough. He gets real anxious and starts running through he finds out that Chairman Rose is heading to the roof. And he gets real anxious, and he starts running through the halls and trying to find his way up. And while he's running through the halls, we get to see a few Pokemon and see him actually part of the hospital, helping him out. Helping out people and I guess working there. And he's heading up, and of course, he's in the hospital, and we don't know what illness he has, but I'm sure it's taking quite a strain on his body to get up there. But you can see the determination in John's face as he's going up the stairs, and he goes through the front doors, the roof doors, and he sees that the helicopter has already taken off. That was with Chairman Rose, and they're heading back. And then we see, not the helicopter, excuse me, the Corviknight that's in that's with Chairman Rose, and they end up turning back because Chairman Rose sees them in the background, and they land, and they see they both get out, and Chairman Rose comes up to the boy, and then they kind of meet. And John collapses all of a sudden, I guess just from the exhaustion of what was happening for the whole, him running up the stairs and everything. And we see that this Corviknight, which was probably my favorite scene that was in this episode, the Corviknight that when we get introduced to it was not fond of people or not fond of strangers. comes to the aid of John and kind of catches him before he falls. And you can see the concern in the Pokemon's face, and he just says thank you. And that's when Chairman Rose tells him, it seems like Pokemon like you. And he said, if Pokemon like you, then you would make a good trainer. And you can just see the emotion in John's face, because it's kind of like the validation he's been wanting. And it's kind of probably something that's not been brought up to him, I guess, because of his, condition. So I guess he never really thought of it as a real option until someone of Chairman Rose, who's an important figure in the Pokemon community, tells him that he can be, like, his dream is actually within his grasp if he wanted to. So the letter falls on the floor, and then it flutters towards Chairman Rose, and he picks it up, and he's just smiling at John. He gets back into the Corviknight, and they're about to take off, and he's complimenting the artwork, and it was a picture of Leon and his Charizard on it, and that's kind of just how the episode ends. John's friend comes up with him, and he's like, "Did you give a letter to the chairman?" And then you just get this little touching moment at the end, and really, Chairman Rose kind of stood out in this episode a lot. Like I said earlier at the beginning, that he really came out as more of a bad guy in the games from playing it. He just seemed like his driving factor was more malevolent than like in a traditional Pokemon game. But hopefully we get some good news out of this and see that Chairman Rose is actually like a pretty good guy, and we get some kind of sense of that in this show. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. We got 6 more episodes of it, and hopefully it's going to be just as exciting as the first one. I know they're short and sweet, but it's pretty good. That's a different take on it. It's like a mini series, so I really can't complain. But anything extra, we really enjoy it. But I'm really excited to see it, especially at the end credits. We got to see all the gym leaders, so hopefully we get to develop it more with John, and hopefully he gets his own Pokemon and gets on his own journey, and kind of see if he's able to challenge Leon later in the future, or at least go to a match like he's been wanting to. But I'm really excited to see how this turns out. We got 6 more episodes, and we're going to keep up with all of them and let you know our thoughts on them. So thank you guys. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch more in the description. Thank y'all for listening, and y'all have a good day.